windy morning. Rain and snow showers mixed. Some of those winds could be locally damaging at times, and there is a lakeshore flood advisory up as well. 43 for a high temp. Patchy clouds, brisk and cold, a low of 28 overnight. Currently 35 at O'Hare. Next news at 7 and breaking news as it happens. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
This hourly segment is brought to you by HealthQuest Radio with Dr. David Kolbaba. Every Saturday morning at 11, right here on AM 560, The Answer.
Dan and Amy, yes, thank you, Daft Punk. We just did the 50 Laboratories of Democracy, did a little circling of what's happening in different states and localities, including our own. Now we go global, and particular case study that is generating a lot of attention because it is not following the pack, so to speak, and that's Sweden, Amy's motherland.
Yes, and they're doing things differently. They've kept schools open. They've kept most restaurants open. You can go get your hair done, Dan. You can, it's what they did is opposite of what we're doing. They've quarantined the most vulnerable, the obese, diabetic, aged, those with pulmonary and heart disease. And I think they're doing fairly well considering they did something different than all of Europe and all over the world. Here's the former Prime Minister, Carl Bildt.
There might be a difference in Sweden in the sense that we might have, Richard, some sort of genetic disposition to social distancing in our society anyhow. We are not that dense society in terms of social contacts under normal circumstances.
Well, it's interesting. There was an interview that the state epidemiologist, Sweden state epidemiologist Anders Tegnell, gave to an Israeli outlet. And he suggests the difference between Sweden's approach and other countries derive from a different tradition, from a different culture that prevail in Sweden. We prefer voluntary measures, and there's a high level of trust here between the population and the authorities, so we're able to avoid coercive restrictions. For those who, by the way, buy the Bernie bro line, Bernie Sanders, Bolshevik Bernie Sanders line about how, we'd be like Sweden. What we're proposing, what the Democrats are proposing is like Sweden. Not exactly. Does that culture properly describe what is being proposed by Bolshevik Bernie and the Democrats in this country across a range of issues? He goes on to say that most directives in this interview, most directives in the country take the form of requests and recommendations. For example, anyone who can is asked to work from home, and the entire population has been urged to refrain from non-essential trips during the upcoming Easter holiday, but no police officers or mobile phone surveillance is being used to enforce the recommendations. People over 70, yes, they've been asked to stay at home, but they're allowed to go out for a walk if it doesn't involve a social encounter. Everyone who had developed symptoms, stay home, and then safeguarding the elderly population, high-risk groups is the other sort of prong in the two-pronged approach. Kindergartens, primary schools open. Universities and high schools have moved to online teaching. Gatherings restricted to 50 people, and bars and restaurants only allowed to serve customers seated at tables, no service at bars or stands.
Okay.
Entertainment venues are closed. So it's not, completely laissez-faire, but it sounds completely laissez-faire.
Compared to what we have here.
Yeah, and most of the rest of the world, including in Scandinavia and the Nordic countries and Western Europe. For more on this, we're pleased to be joined by Robert Nilsson, who is Amy's cousin, most importantly, and the communications director for Sweden's largest bank. Robert, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Give us a sense of how the Swedes are reacting to the attention they're getting as the black swan in all of this.
I think we're all are pretty comfortable in the strategy that our prime minister or our government have chosen to go with. I think they've been on the right path since the beginning. You can see a lot of Swedes are actually following the recommendation and what the authorities are saying.
But is it strange? I mean, your kids get to go to school. Do you feel safe sending them to school?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the kids are going to preschool, and that's going on as usual. The only thing that's been said from the preschool side is that any like sign of a cold or a sniffle, they keep them at home. But otherwise, it's okay to have them there. And I think that's been great because what studies have shown, or the statistics have shown, is that the kids aren't like spreading the disease. A lot of kids are handling the virus pretty well. So I mean, for us, if they would close down the kindergartens and the preschools, parents need to stay at home. We can go to work, and the economy would suffer. So as long as we can keep it in preschool, and the authorities says it's okay, I think that's great.
And so this balancing that Sweden has done and is doing, that hasn't changed in terms of popular support, even as your case count has increased and the death toll has increased?
No, I mean, our prime minister right now is going up in polls. I mean, he was struggling before this, but now he's increased in popularity.
And so what's the reaction then? Instead of the reaction to you, what's Sweden's reaction to its Scandinavian neighbors with respect to more draconian shutdown measures?
Well, I think that as I said, like the most Swedes are pretty cool regarding what the authorities have been saying. I mean, I think everyone is pretty happy that the politicians are doing what the experts is telling us. I mean, our prime minister, the Norwegian prime minister, Denmark's prime minister, nor like Donald Trump is an expert in pandemics. So I think like the experts should have the last say in this. So everybody feels pretty comfortable and safe.
What has been
strategy?
What's been the economic impact? I know you're engaged in this balancing act, but as a comm director for a bank, what's been the impact on everyday life and economic life? Because obviously there are parts of your economy that are shut down. There is a cost that's being paid.
Yeah, I mean, in like different businesses and it's tough. I mean, it's tough for everyone. I'm not saying that it's all like fine and dandy.
Right.
Some people are really struggling. Some businesses have had to shut down, but like in general, we're still like it's going pretty well though. You saw the Stockholm stock market had a dip in the beginning, but last couple of weeks it's been going up pretty steadily.
Now, do people have a choice to work from home, or could you go to work?
I can go to work if I want to. I've been home for the most part for the last 3 weeks, I think. I've been in I think like 3 times to the office to access some systems. So that's all fine because in the headquarters where I work, it's few people, so you can keep the social distancing going in.
How much?
Sounds heavenly.
How frequently do you hear from politicians? In other words, are you getting daily briefings from the prime minister or from local officials? What's the communication like?
Yeah, at 2 p.m. every day, there's a press conference with the epidemiologists and authorities giving us the latest updates and status with statistics and how everything is going.
And Robert, do you think there's a point in time where this all might go away, the freedoms that you have, that you might be on lockdown like other countries?
Yeah, I mean, they've passed legislation. So if the call are from the experts that, okay, now we need to shut down the kindergartens, we can do that with like a day's notice. So it's just they're prepared for everything that could happen. But as it seems right now, of course, the Stockholm region, which it's the biggest region, we're like heading to our peak right now. So I think here's going to be a dip in the coming weeks or so. So I think like right now it's pretty steady. So I think it's going to ease up later on this spring or summer.
Have your elected officials disclosed the strategy? In other words, are they getting buy-in from the populace to disclose the strategy in terms of how you get to the other side of this viral outbreak? For example, are they suggesting, look, one of the reasons we're taking a more open approach than other countries is because we think that it's best that we try to achieve herd immunity as fast as possible. And this is one way to do it: herd immunity among the younger and the healthier, while protecting the older and the more vulnerable.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's pretty much the strategy. Like the thing is, like what we want to do is, like everyone, like flatten the curve. We want to have, we know it's going to spread. We want it to spread slowly, but like, with as few restrictions as possible. So they've been open with that.
And how much do they talk about communication with other countries, particularly in the region? Is there dialogue going on between the heads of state and in the region?
Yeah, it is. I mean, they keep a close contact. I mean, we have that historically. We have a good dialogue with the other Scandinavian countries.
Are your borders shut down, and do you have enough access to testing there?
Yeah, the borders are shut down, but we just like 2 weeks ago got a whole bunch of testing supplies. So we're now testing several tens of thousands a week to estimate like how the spread is among the Swedish population. You're doing ongoing testing every week.
You're doing antibody testing, not virus testing.
Yeah, antibody, but also virus testing.
Right. So you're doing
to
both.
Like determine. Excuse me.
You're doing both lines of testing.
Yeah.
And it's got to be encouraging to your officials that you're starting to see other European countries talking about opening up: Austria, Denmark, Norway, Germany.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like, you had Denmark. They had a pretty hard lockdown, but they had like a lockdown now for like 2 weeks. They're starting to loosen up on the restraints. I mean, what's the point in having a lockdown for 2 weeks and then opening it up again and then criticize us? That's pretty weird, I guess.
Yeah, stick it to the Danes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, interestingly, I mean, in terms of the confirmed cases per million population, Denmark and Sweden have virtually the same numbers.
Yeah, exactly.
Despite the difference in approach. I mean, it's got what you know. I know this wasn't the aim of Sweden, but Sweden is going to turn out to be like a control case for trying to assess whether other countries in the West overreacted with some of the more draconian measures they took versus some of the more measured approach, the more measured approach that Sweden took. This is going to be hotly debated when this subsides, I can imagine.
I hope so, at least. I guess like no one really knows how this is going to end until probably like December or something like that, when they're talking about a second wave and stuff like that. We have to see like when that comes, how hard it's going to hit us and the other countries. So, but yeah, I think the Swedish strategy, it's been working pretty good so far.
Going back to your profession as a communications director for a big bank, what is the government doing, if anything, with respect to businesses, and particularly businesses that have been closed, the entertainment venues, museums? Is there a loan or a grant program that is in place like we have instituted in this country?
Yeah, I mean the government have supported with like financial packages and stuff to businesses to stimulate them, and also they've some businesses have got the possibility to get like a short-term work relief. So the government steps in and pays like 50% of their salary, and the company steps in and pays the other 40%. So the people on work leave still get 90% of their salary for like 1 to 2 months.
So Sweden's doing So Sweden is doing something similar to what we're doing, both on the individual as well as the business.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Exactly.
Robert Nilsson, Amy's cousin, first and foremost. He also has a real life and a real job. He's the communications director for Sweden's largest bank. Robert, thanks so much for joining us and giving us the view from the ground there. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. Thanks, care.
Robert. Yes, and give everyone our love, and tack så mycket. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
It's like a hot, steaming cup of information to start your day.